Welcome to today's deep dive. We're really glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thrilled to be here and diving into this one.
Because we have a very specific mission today. We are going to cut right through the modern noise of superficial spirituality.
There's a lot of that noise right now.
There really is. And we're unpacking a resource that genuinely demands your attention. We are looking at Called Out of Darkness to Light by Chris R. Valesis.
It's a massive work.
It is. And for you, someone who wants to bypass the endless information overload to find genuine, structured aha moments, this is the exact kind of deep dive that pays dividends.
It absolutely is. I mean, we were talking about a text that spans over 3,000 pages.
3010, right?
Right, exactly. But what makes it worth your time isn't just the sheer volume. It's the origin of the insights. The author brings over 25 years of on-the-ground experience as a missionary pastor in the Philippines.
So it's not just theory.
No, not at all. This isn't abstract ivory tower theology. This is field-tested, lifelong wisdom forged in real, messy human contexts.
And that real-world grounding is precisely why we are distilling the core of this work for you today. We're going to break down the book's progressive 6-stage blueprint.
Which is such a helpful roadmap.
It really is.
Wow.
It's designed to move you from what Valesis terms a passive salvation into a deeply anchored, purposeful life. Because, let's face it, we live in a digital age obsessed with fast metrics.
Oh, completely.
This book offers a profound contrast. It focuses entirely on the slow, unglamorous, but ultimately permanent work of human transformation.
Which is a necessary pivot right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're shifting the focus away from the shiny and the immediate and bringing it back to what actually sustains a person over a lifetime.
Yeah.
The digital age has rewired how we think about success. And unfortunately, that rewiring has bled directly into how we think about spiritual growth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the book starts with a pretty sharp diagnosis of modern faith. It calls out an obsession with digital age metrics. We're talking about algorithmic reach, follower counts, platform size. We're living through an era of extreme AI disruption and rapidly shrinking attention spans.
And it changes how organizations operate.
Exactly. Valesis argues that the church has unconsciously adopted visibility as its primary metric of success. But, and let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure. Go ahead.
In a world where we are commanded to be salt and light, isn't output and visibility somewhat necessary? I mean, if you have a message that can change lives, shouldn't you want to leverage every algorithm available to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible?
It's a really fair point, and it's one the author tackles head on. The issue isn't that reaching people is inherently bad.
Right.
The issue is when we confuse visibility with vitality.
Visibility versus vitality.
Yes. Visibility is the dashboard metrics you just mentioned. It's how far a message spreads online. Vitality, on the other hand, is the actual lifeblood of spiritual maturation.
Okay, I see the distinction.
Digital tools are incredibly effective at gathering a crowd, but they are entirely incapable of replicating deeply human elements. An algorithm cannot exercise pastoral discernment.
No, it can't.
A digital platform doesn't have empathy. A social media broadcast cannot sit in a living room and share in your suffering.
So it's the difference between having an audience that consumes your content and having a community that actually knows you.
Precisely. And the book points to Jesus' ministry in the Gospel of Mark to illustrate this.
Oh, that's right. The contrast there is striking.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because if anyone possessed the power to maximize visibility, it was Jesus. He drew immense, unprecedented crowds. But look at how he actually allocated his time.
He didn't just play to the crowd.
No, he didn't focus his primary energy on retaining that massive crowd or optimizing his reach.
Yeah.
Instead, he consistently withdrew to pour his time into a highly structured, deeply relational investment with just 12 men.
Just 12.
Yeah. Success in this biblical context isn't about the speed of your expansion. It's entirely about the strength of your foundation.
That distinction is crucial. You can build an audience overnight in our current tech landscape, but if there is no vitality, no real human transformation anchoring, it just collapses under pressure.
It's a house built on sand.
Exactly. Which brings us to a concept in the book that I found really striking. It's about what happens after that initial moment of belief. Valesis uses the story of the blind man in John chapter 9.
I love this analogy.
It's so good. When a blind man opens his eyes for the very first time, he enters the light. That is a miracle. But I love how the author frames the next step.
The walking part.
Right. Just because a man can finally see the room doesn't mean he has the muscle memory to know how to walk through it.
It's a beautifully grounding image. The awakening has happened, but the maturation, the actual process of learning to navigate the world in this new reality has just begun.
Right. And Velasquez argues that while salvation is an awakening, far too many believers suffer from what he calls arrested development.
They get stuck.
They treat the moment of conversion like it's the finish line rather than the starting block. They get their sight and then they just sit in the chair.
And this is where the 6-stage blueprint begins. Stage 1 is awakening. But he defines it carefully. He isn't talking about maintaining an emotional high.
Which is exhausting anyway.
It is. Drawing heavily on Romans 8, he defines this stage as making a definitive shift from uncertainty to a settled confidence in God's grace.
Settled confidence. I like that phrasing.
You have to secure that foundational knowledge of your security before you can take the next step. If your foundation is anxious, everything you build on top of it will be anxious.
Which naturally leads us to stage 2, identity. Because if you don't have that settled confidence from stage 1, you end up stepping into stage 2 with all the wrong motivations.
Exactly. You start trying to prove your worth rather than resting in it.
What's fascinating here is how Velasquez dismantles performance-based Christianity through the theological lens of union with Christ. Believers today, constantly absorbing the hustle culture around them, tend to tie their spiritual worth directly to their output. They think, if I am volunteering more, producing more, and visibly doing more, then I am a better Christian.
And the inevitable result is sheer exhaustion.
We basically treat spiritual growth like a corporate ladder. We're constantly trying to earn a promotion.
That's a great way to put it.
But Velasquez uses the vine and branches metaphor from John 15 to completely flip that script. We don't need to rehash the basics of John 15 since you listening are likely familiar with it. What's compelling is how Velasquez applies it to our modern digital exhaustion.
The branch doesn't strain and stress to produce a grape. It simply abides.
It just stays connected.
True identity is about connection, not achievement. If you try to build your spiritual identity on achievement, you will burn out. Because there will always be someone producing more than you, or an algorithm telling you you aren't doing enough.
Always.
Union with Christ anchors your identity in the fact that the work is already finished.
Now, I have to admit, when I first read the transition from this high-level theology into stage 3, which is formation, I was a little skeptical.
Really? Why is that?
Well, Velasquez moves from abide in the vine to providing very specific implementation scaffolding, things like 15-minute devotional templates and 30-day discipline trackers.
Ah, I see.
My immediate thought was, great, are we just replacing the corporate ladder with a productivity hack? How does Velasquez avoid this just becoming another checklist that fuels the exact performance anxiety we just talked about?
That is the danger, isn't it? But this is where his reliance on Titus 2 is so critical. In Titus, Paul writes that grace trains us.
Grace trains us.
That phrasing completely reframes the concept of discipline. Usually we view spiritual disciplines like strict reading plans or fasting as a legalistic burden. It feels like a chore we do to earn favor.
Like paying dues.
Right. But Velasquez argues that discipline is actually a channel of grace.
So it's not a test you pass or fail?
No, not at all. Grace isn't just passive permission to be forgiven. It is an active training mechanism. It trains us to renounce the things that harm us and to embrace the things that heal us.
That shifts the whole perspective.
It does. Those 15-minute devotionals and 30-day trackers aren't scorecards. They are the daily rhythms that allow grace to shape your character over time.
Going back to the John 9 analogy, it's the physical therapy required to build the muscle memory so you can actually walk in the light.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
But you don't do physical therapy in a vacuum, which brings us to stage 4, community. This might be the most countercultural section of the whole text.
Without a doubt.
We are so used to consumer Christianity. We treat church community the same way we treat Netflix. If the first 10 minutes aren't entertaining or if the content makes us mildly uncomfortable, we just scroll to another option.
And Velasquez aggressively pushes back against that isolationist consumer mindset.
Yeah.
He draws from Acts 2 and 1 Corinthians 12 to frame community not as an optional weekend event, but as a covenantal necessity.
A covenantal necessity, meaning you're locked in.
Exactly. In the early church, you couldn't just opt out when things got difficult.
Let me challenge that a bit, though. A lot of people listening have probably experienced real hurt in communal settings. If a church or a small group is supposed to be a place of healing and support, Why does the Velocis lean so heavily into the idea that friction and shared suffering are requirements for sanctification?
Because true sanctification, the actual process of becoming more like Christ, cannot happen in an echo chamber.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you only surround yourself with a curated feed of people who agree with you and never challenge you, your rough edges never get smoothed out. Friction is the mechanism for growth.
Iron sharpening iron.
Yes. It requires the accountability of other people looking at your life, seeing your blind spots, and speaking truth into them in love. You need the messy, deeply analog reality of a local community to test whether your private disciplines are actually bearing fruit.
Wow. Yeah, it's easy to be patient when you're alone in your room doing a 15-minute devotional. It's much harder to be patient when you're dealing with a difficult personality in your small group.
Exactly. The community is the proving ground for the formation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because all of this inward growth, the identity building, the communal friction, it isn't an end in itself. It is preparation.
It's fuel for the next stage.
Right. And that propels us into stage 5, which is mission. This is the transition from inward transformation to outward action. But again, given his 25 years of missionary experience, Velocis has a very specific, grounded definition of what mission actually looks like.
He does. He is very careful to clarify that mission is not about pressure-driven recruitment. It is certainly not about argumentative aggression or trying to win theological debates in the comments section of a social media post.
Which is how a lot of modern engagement is framed today.
Sadly, yes. But Velocis insists that mission is entirely about relational empathy. It's about learning how to share a deeply personal testimony that is firmly rooted in Scripture and doing so within the context of actual earned relationship.
Earned relationships being the key there.
Right. You are sharing the light with gentleness and respect. You aren't delivering a sales pitch. You are inviting someone into the reality you have already experienced.
And that relational, empathetic approach flows naturally into the final stage of the blueprint, stage 6, leadership. The goal here is multiplication over maintenance.
Yes.
Based on 2 Timothy 2:2, where Paul tells Timothy to entrust what he's learned to faithful people who will teach others, Velocis argues that spiritual maturity culminates in mentoring.
He's quite forceful about this point, too.
Yeah.
If you aren't investing your hard-won experience into a newer believer, your own spiritual growth will stagnate.
This just hits a wall.
A river that doesn't flow outward becomes a swamp. You have to pour out what has been poured into you.
So we've traced the arc from the initial awakening of salvation all the way to multiplying that salvation in others. But we promised you, the listener, that we wouldn't just leave you with abstract concepts.
We need the practical application.
Exactly. The author provides a highly actionable 90-day blueprint to apply this exact 6-stage progression.
Yeah.
Let's break down the psychology of this timeline, because this is where the theory becomes practice.
The structure of these 90 days is incredibly intentional. It prevents you from rushing ahead and trying to do everything at once.
Right. So for days 1 through 30, your entire focus is on awakening and identity. You aren't trying to change the world yet.
You're just setting the foundation.
You aren't even focused on outward community yet. You are memorizing key assurance passages. You are establishing your daily prayer rhythms. Why dedicate a full third of the plan just to this? What happens if someone tries to skip to mission on day 5?
If you skip to mission on day 5, you are operating out of your own strength, not out of union with Christ. You are giving away what you do not yet securely possess.
You're running on empty.
Exactly. Those first 30 days are about unlearning the bad habits of performance-based Christianity. It takes time to convince your brain and your heart that your worth is truly settled. You have to lay the foundation deep enough so that when you face rejection or friction later, you don't crumble.
That makes a lot of sense. Once that foundation is set, days 31 through 60 shift the focus outward to formation and community.
The proving ground phase.
Right. This is where you join or initiate a small discipleship group. You start practicing the habit of a true weekly Sabbath or integrating fasting into your routine.
Notice the transition there. You move from the private security of your identity into the vulnerable space of community. You are bringing your secure self into a space where friction will inevitably occur.
Because it always does.
Always. Practicing Sabbath and fasting during this phase is also key. These are disciplines of relinquishing control. You are learning to trust God and trust your community rather than relying entirely on your own productivity.
You are quite literally practicing the art of not being in control, which sets you up perfectly for the final phase, days 61 through 90.
The outward push.
This is the focus on mission and leadership. Now you start intentionally initiating spiritual conversations. You begin to articulate your personal testimony. And crucially, you find someone newer in their faith to begin mentoring. In just 90 days, you move from securing your own foundation to actively building into someone else's.
It's a demanding timeline, but it's scalable. It takes all of that rich 3,000-page theological clarity and forces it into a structured framework that absolutely refuses to let you remain a passive consumer of information.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize this deep dive into Chris Arvelas's work, what is the ultimate takeaway for you?
It's a paradigm shift.
It really is. The journey from darkness to light demands that we fundamentally change our metrics for success. We have to stop prioritizing platforms, visibility, and numerical reach, and start prioritizing genuine incarnational presence. It demands that we embrace a structured, multidimensional framework that takes us from being sincere beginners and turns us into resilient, deeply rooted disciple makers.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look honestly at the reality of the world we are operating in. It is a world characterized by extreme distraction, by superficial noise, and by a constant state of overwhelm.
Just constant noise.
In that environment, the people who actually leave a generational impact won't be the ones chasing the algorithm. It will be the disciplined, deeply anchored believers who are steadily, quietly doing the slow work of abiding in Christ and mentoring others.
Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought for you to really mull over.
Right.
Throughout this work, the author emphasizes that artificial intelligence and digital algorithms are incredible at synthesizing information.
They are very efficient.
They can write sermons, they can generate content, they can maximize your reach globally in a matter of seconds. But they can never, ever replicate incarnational presence. A screen cannot replicate relational empathy.
No, it can't.
An AI cannot sit with someone in their pain. So as the world around us continues to automate and digitize almost every single aspect of human connection, could committing to a slow, relational, deeply analog 90-day discipleship journey actually be the most radical and subversive act of resistance you could undertake today?
It's a powerful question.
Think about it. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.